Um, we want to get sort of started because we know that from what's happened in the previous morning sessions, people tend to sort of join us at about 5 or 10 minutes late. But of course, we have very limited time for our sessions. So it's sort of important that we try to get started as soon as possible. So I'll just mention, maybe repeat later some of the housekeeping rules. This session, like I said, it's the final session, and we're sort of calling it the Eko-Konnect Community Day, using ren.ng infrastructure and services. So essentially, what this session is really going to be about is testimonies and of some of the institutions that are working with Eko-Konnect. They'll be describing what they've been doing with Eko-Konnect and some of the services, NREN services that are available, and advocating for how other institutions could possibly leverage the services and support and other initiatives that are coming from Eko-Konnect. So we'll really be seeing testimonies from a few universities of things they've already done in collaboration with Eko-Konnect, or things that are actually in the planning to do in their institutions with Eko-Konnect, and leveraging some of the services that have been talked about during this conference. So there'll be, I think there'll be 4 speakers. And then after the 4 speakers have presented, hopefully there'll be a little time for some question and answer sessions. And the idea is just to maybe explore more about how institutions can collaborate and engage, have further engagement with the NRENs and what they have to offer. There's so much that is going on locally and globally that we all need to get connected to improve education and research in Nigeria. And Eko-Konnect, as an NREN provider, is doing a lot in this space. We want to really use the testimonies, the conference, and other communication channels to make institutions and users aware of possibilities that are out there that they can leverage based on examples that will be presented. So thank you for joining. I think the standard protocols for this session will be that during the course of each of the presentations, if you do have any questions, you can put those questions in the Q&A chat, so that we will try to allow all the speakers make their presentations, and then have some time at the end of their presentations for questions and answers. Alternatively, if you have some comments to make as well, you can also make comments. And if you do feel strongly that you need to speak, to ask a question or raise a comment, then you can actually use the raise hand icon to indicate your willingness to speak, and then we'll allow you at the appropriate time to be able to ask your question or make your comments. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to my colleague at Eko-Konnect, Mr. Olayiwola Lawal, who is a consultant with Eko-Konnect, and he will be moderating the session, and I'll be observing closely and making comments where appropriate. So thank you, and over to you, Ola.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. All right, so thanks for the introduction. And as we are all aware what this session is all about, so not to waste much of our time. So what I'm going to do is introduce the first speaker we had for today in the person of Engineer Ekene Ezeaso. So Engineer Ekene is the head of R&D, Directorate of ICT of Nnamdi Azikiwe University. So is also a member of the Nigerian Identity Federation Technical Committee, which is the eduID, and is the lead developer of CRMS. It's a software that is being used by Nnamdi Azikiwe University to manage staff identity and also administrative activity. So his presentation this morning will be dealing on deploying eduID and Eduroam on campus. So basically we'll be hearing his experience while they're deploying eduID and Eduroam at Nnamdi Azikiwe University. Engineer Ekene, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. Good morning.
All right, good morning. So as just as you've heard Mr. Owen said, so any questions or comments you have for Ekene, so you can drop that in the Q&A section or the chat section. We'll be looking out for that as well. So thank you very much. I will hand over to Ekene now.
Okay, thank you, Ola. I'll be sharing my screen. Just a moment, please. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. So we want to start from presentation mode.
Yes, you can see that.
Okay, so
do you want to click on swap displays so that because we can
okay,
see
what are you seeing?
Okay, yeah,
okay. All right. Good morning, all. My name is Ekene Ezeaso. I'll be talking about my experiences while deploying eduID and Eduroam on campus. So, first of all, we want to understand what eduID is. Of course, we know it's a hosted identity provider platform where people can serving as an identity provider where people can authenticate to access other service providers like Zoom, Moodle, hosted Moodle, and the rest of them. So it's also a trusted access management environment that provides users with single sign-on and seamless content access, whether at home or abroad, using your login credentials of their home institution. So what that means is if I'm a staff of Nnamdi Azikiwe University and I get to probably Harvard University, I can easily access whatever I'm allowed to access using my credentials from Nnamdi Azikiwe University. So eduID helps provide that. It's also operated by Wakren in the West and Central African region as eduid.africa, operated by Eko-Konnect in Nigeria as eduid.ng. I was recently appointed as the technical committee member. So it's built on SAML protocol. SAML protocol is a security accession markup language. It's an open standard for exchanging authentication and authorization data between parties, in particular between an identity provider, in this situation, eduID, and the service provider, An example of a service provider could be Zoom, Moodle, and the rest of that. My exposure to eduID and Eduroam. Okay, sorry, what is Eduroam? Eduroam is an international Wi-Fi internet access roaming service for users in research and higher education. It provides researchers, teachers, students network access when visiting an institution other than their own. So this actually is almost the same with Eduroam. It's just that Eduroam gives you, eduID rather, gives you access to web applications, web-based applications and the rest of that, while Eduroam focuses on internet access. So they are basically the same identity providers and serving as service providers at different points also. It's based on 802.1x and a linked hierarchy of radio servers containing users' data. At this point, usernames and passwords in a secured manner. Eduroam is pioneered by giants in Europe and overseen by Eko-Konnect here in Nigeria. So we talk about our exposure to eduID and Eduroam, our personal experience. So Eko-Connect, in collaboration with Covenant University, sometime in February 2019, hosted an Africa Training Initiative workshop where we were taught on joining Eduroam and eduID. So we were exposed, there were hands-on training where we are trained on using ren Cloud and hosted eduID identity providers to deploy Eduroam on campus. It was an intensive 2 days training, which we learned a lot. We carried out a planned deployathon to make our host, that's the Covenant University, want to make their campus network Eduroam capable, as a form of demonstration to what we are doing. It may please you to know that after that training, we went home, continued our work, and found out that we became the first institution in Nigeria to have a functional and compliant Eduroam network. And we also became the first Nigerian entity to be listed on the Eduroam CAT website. So Eduroam CAT website is it's a website where you go to download already configured Eduroam configuration settings for different devices, for your mobile, for your laptops, Mac, and the rest of them. So before you are being listed, all of those settings will be tested to make sure they are all working. So we did all of that. It was not quite an easy experience. It was days of work before we could get that working. Of course, with support from Eko-Connect and Wakren. So we are talking about single sign-on. So why do we actually require single sign-on, particularly for institutions? We talk about lots of vendor software and applications which are requiring some sort of one login mechanism or the other. So it wouldn't be so nice for faculties, staff and students to always be remembering their different login details, different usernames, different passwords from different vendors. So it would be nice for them to have a single username and a single password where they can seamlessly log into all of those software applications. So we also talk about lots of researchers who study and work outside the university and require some access to services of their host institution. So I was in Eko-Konnect Secretariat sometime, and I tried to use the network Eduroam. So I was able to use the Eduroam service because you know, at that point, the Eko-Konnect Eduroam network became a service provider, while my institution that authenticated me was the identity provider. So I could be able to use my identity from my institution to be able to access the Eko-Konnect Eduroam network. Now, we also talk about, I've talked about this before, the stress of remembering multiple usernames and passwords, the need to authoritatively
Looks like Ekenet's connection is frozen. Let's give him a couple of moments, see if he comes back on.
Okay, so for those of us just joining in the session, so Engineer Ikene is talking about the deployments of Eduroam and EduID on their campus, which is the Nnamdi Azikiwe University. So he's back now. So Ikene.
Sorry, what was last thing you saw before I went off?
No, you were talking about Eko-Konnect. You've been able to join Eko-Konnect Eduroam when you were at the secretariat.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you for that. So the stress of remembering multiple usernames and password, I've talked about that before. Then we talk about the need to authoritatively identify a staff or student. So when you say that when we say that this person is a staff, we should beat our chest and say that yes, this person is a staff. So the ability for us to identify authoritatively that this person is a staff or a student, so that serves for that also. Then the need to secure systems and allow access to only authorized personnel. Also, the need to minimize costs to support desk for multiple account support. You know, when a lot of persons keep calling your support desk that they have, can you help me reset this password? They have forgotten the username for this account and all of that. So when you measure the number of calls you get for the number of support tickets you get from multiple accounts, you will now appreciate when it's limited, because they just have to remember one username and one password, as simple as that. So this is a typical SSO workflow for the service provider will, initiated workflow. So we so this is the user. This is the user who tries to access a service, probably, let's, for example, take, let's say Eko-Konnect hosted a Moodle platform, and from Nnamdi Azikiwe University, a user here wants to access Moodle on the Eko-Konnect platform. So what typically happens there is the user tries to access the user browser browses to the service provider, and a request is sent back to the user's browser, and then it's looped down to the identity provider. So what happens here is when you want to access that module, the Moodle site sees that, okay, you are coming from Nnamdi Azikiwe University, and because the top level, the eduID knows everybody and where they are coming from. So eduID will be able to redirect to your institution database, which is now what it's doing here. So when it redirects here, it requests the user to log in. And when the user logs in successfully, eduID sends a token, the SAML token, back to the service provider. Now, if these two things are signed, they are signed. So the service provider, which is down the Moodle, verifies the identity token, and that token contains your details, very basic details that is required to access the Moodle site. So it verifies it, and then if it is correct, the user is validated and you are granted access to whatever that you require. And you now start doing whatever you want to do. Okay, so that being said, this is a typical service provider initiated workflow. Now, we talk about the approach we used to set up, to meet this eduID and Eduroam. So we went back, we set up a team comprising of management staff, technical staff, legal representative, and researchers. Here in Nnamdi Azikiwe, we try as much as possible to carry everybody along to get every view. The need for the management staff is to, if there is need for any approvals, it will be easy for us to get it. If there is need for any financials, anything that involves financials, it will be easy for us to get. Of course, the technical staff does everything technical there. The legal representative lets us know our boundaries, what we can do and what we cannot do. And then we get the views from researchers and other members of the university. So, of course, we developed an objective, which is primarily to digitize the operations of the university. And if we are saying we want to digitize the operations of the university, we should have a way to control access to a lot of services. So if we are digitizing the university, the operations of the university, we should be able to grant access to who should get that access. For if you are a staff, you should have access for staff, and access control and all of that. So that gave rise to the development of a web-based software that can always answer the question, who are you? So we are all talking about identity. So we want to answer the question at every point in time, who are you? Now, who are you, brought about a software called Central Information Reference and Management System, the CRMS. So I'm going to talk a little about the CRMS. It focuses on staff data management and processes, handles staff onboarding and exit. So we figured out a way that for staff who are coming into the university, we need to know you. We need to have a systematic way of capturing your data so that when you are accessing any service, even outside the university, we can authoritatively say, yes, this is our staff and is allowed to access those services. And on the point of exit, you cannot access those services also based on the criteria that we set. So the platform can also handle HR processes like results, promotions, redeployment, leave, document verification, and the rest of them. It provides, especially it provides a role-based access management because as a staff, you don't have access to every aspect of the whatever service we are providing. So you may have some rule-based access. So the platform provides for that, and it provides different endpoints for management and control. It can be extended extensively using plugins and API. Serves particularly as both a service provider and identity provider, depending on the service you are requiring. Okay, so this is just the login page. And this is, if you want to search for users in our university, you can search for it authoritatively. So whoever you see here is a staff of the university. So the connection, how did the connection happen? EduID, CRMS. So at the moment we have the university users who exist on the eduID database. However, we want to manage our users in-house. So we have a mirror, should I say a mirror, sort of some of our users who exist on our platform and also exists on the eduID database. So currently I'm exploring possibilities of having the primary authentication source for eduID to be from our own data source, from our own database. So what this is that right now we have to export users from our own database and then import them on the eduID platform. So we are in talks with Eko-Konnect, figuring out ways that, okay, why not having a real-time authentication happening directly on our platform through the eduID platform. Then the authentication will be happening directly on our database. And then we also have the users exported to the eduID database as a failover for if peradventure anything happens and our database could not be reached. So we are still discussing on that to see ways that can be possible. Then eduID, CRMS and Eduroam. CRMS serves as an identity provider, as an authentication source for our Eduroam. So what does it mean? It means that the same username and password that you use to log into our CRMS platform is what you will use to log into your Eduroam, service, to Eduroam network. So and it's being controlled centrally. So it may please you to know that if you disable any user on our CRMS, of course, that user cannot have access to any of the integrated services, including Eduroam. So for now, our Eduroam coverage is limited to just very specific points because we are carrying out some network restructuring, and Eko-Konnect has been guiding us so far on a lot of ways that we could better prepare our campus network right from the network audit that was carried out by Eko-Konnect some time ago. So from the reports of network audit, we've been working closely with Eko-Konnect to better restructure our network coverage so that it will become, the Eduroam network will become a widely used in the university. So, okay, like I said earlier, I've personally used the Eduroam network in Eko-Konnect Secretariat in Lagos as a confirmation of the setup. Mr. Owen of Eko-Konnect, who was also able to connect to the Eduroam network during one of his visits to Nnamdi Azikiwe University in the coverage points. So we talk about awareness, acceptance, and usage. One thing about technology is after introducing a technology, you have to create an awareness and measure the acceptance and usage. It was not an easy one, I must say. We are still on it. We've conducted several trainings at different levels. In the university, you have people of different categories in life, the young ones, the elderly ones, and people who have never used a computer in their life before. So we have to figure out a way to accommodate every one of them. So we've tried to sensitize a whole lot of staff in different ways that we can, both guided, virtual, physical, and all of that. We've also conducted some segmented training, mostly for researchers, on the numerous benefits. If you do not know the benefits of using these services, you may not really appreciate it. So we've gone out of the way to always sensitize our staff and students on the benefits of using, particularly their staff, their university identity. That's the email address. Of course, the user, the core identity is the email address. And we also guide, train them on the security of their data, to guide their passwords jealously, so that because if one gets access to that, you'll be able to get access to a whole lot of services in the campus and outside the campus. So we've also taught them on how to access some of the few allow service providers that we are currently utilizing and all of that. So, and for the usage, yes, a lot of staff and students are beginning to, of course, the students are the younger sets, they adapt quite easily. So the staff are gradually adapting to all of this, but we are hoping that in the near future, every staff will be able to navigate to all of these platforms in an easy manner. So my appreciation. I want to sincerely appreciate Eko-Konnect ren for the numerous financial and technical support over the years. So I want to also appreciate personally the efforts of Mr. Owen and Mr. Omo in the work they do. It's not an easy task to carry almost, the entire, trying to bring the entire country into, what I would say, into the digital era, because a lot of universities in Nigeria, particularly, are yet to join in a lot of modern technologies that are being used by other universities in the European countries, in the Western countries. I will not also fail to appreciate my director. He's also in this conference, who also has been very supportive in making sure we deliver on our jobs, and he's very, very supportive in making sure that all of these services are being deployed. And lastly, my amiable Vice Chancellor. Of course, if your CEO does not support what you are doing, all the trainings we've been going, both the ATI training, the logistics and the rest of it, if there is no support for it, it wouldn't have been possible. The university and Eko-Konnect have a very lasting relationship, and we will continue to improve on those relationships in our journey to become part of the best 200 universities in the world. Thank you for listening.
Hi, you just allow me to interject before we move on with the session. Thank you, Mr. Kenneth, for a very wonderful presentation. It was really nice. And I like the fact that you alluded to the fact that some of these services are in their infancy. So many people may not even really understand some of the benefits of this infrastructure you so well described in terms of eduID and Eduroam. But I can see that there are a number of librarians among our attendees. And one of the things I just wanted to mention before I hand over back to the moderator is that institutions across the globe are basically adhering to these infrastructure of eduID and Eduroam, and are providing their services through these mechanisms. And a lot of the library publishers and library databases are now requiring that in order to access their content, they must be able to trust the librarian or researcher that is accessing their content. And they've decided to do this by using the eduID infrastructure that you just so well described, so that in order to know and trust who is accessing their content. And as a result of that, they're also able to implement more cost-effective licensing using these eduID frameworks. So you find now that many institutions around the globe are getting access to databases and publishing content where licensing is based on leveraging identity provision within eduID. But because this infrastructure is not widely used yet in Nigeria and Africa, they're using this whole, your IP address, a more expensive method of licensing is being adopted in Africa. So you find that many access to library content, international databases is typically very expensive for Nigerian institutions, just because they don't have this eduID infrastructure on which licensing can be based. So this is very important for the technical people, for the communities of practice within the universities, for librarians, for researchers. You want to access local and international repositories. Increasingly, because the content providers want to be sure of who you are, eduID has become very important. And then on the last point that you just mentioned, Eko-Konnect, you're quite right. Anytime I visit Nnamdi Azikiwe University, because my phone and my laptop is already used to accessing Eduroam in my office, and my access point in my office is called Eduroam. When I come to Nnamdi Azikiwe University and my phone and laptop sees an access point called Eduroam, it will try to log in. And because of the whole Eduroam architecture, I'm able to successfully log into the UNIZIK network with certain restrictions and enjoy the Wi-Fi available. Now, recently I was in London, and I stayed in a hotel that was close to the University of London. The University of London campus was literally across the road from the hotel. And so when I checked into the hotel, I asked them, I want to be able to access the hotel Wi-Fi and all of that. And what they told me was that once I got to my room, somebody would come in a few minutes' time with some credentials that I could use to access the hotel Wi-Fi network. So I said that was fine. So I went up to my room. I got into my room and I put on my laptop and my phone, and I was connecting to the internet, and things were just happening. And I was like, what's going on? How come I've got connectivity? I haven't gotten any credentials from the hotel yet. So I was a bit surprised. But what had happened was that the University of London uses Eduroam. And basically, because their campuses were not too far away, my phone and my laptop saw access points, Eduroam access points in the University of London, and were able to connect to Eduroam. And increasingly, this thing, as long as you're within the research and education space, anywhere you go around the world where there are well-developed campus networks and sufficient internet bandwidth, as a researcher, as a student, as long as you're a student, you can roam and get access to education networks. And like you said, Eko-Konnect, you find that Eduroam is more benefit at the moment when you travel out of the country. So you'll find yourself, Eko-Konnect, when you travel to Europe or America, as you are with your laptop and your phone, you'll be connecting to networks once you come in proximity of any campus. And this is really what we want to be able to create in Nigeria. So students and researchers, regardless of whatever campus they may be visiting, have seamless access to Wi-Fi. So I really appreciate what you're doing in UNIZIK. Like you rightly said, you're the first university in the country to basically deploy Eduroam. And we really hope that you continue the great efforts in expanding on the work that's been done. So from an Eko-Konnect perspective as well, we'd like to thank you and UNIZIK for all the hard work that you've done in this area. And of course, for Professor Simone as well, for all the support that he has given in all of these endeavors. So thank you very much. Sorry,
thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Engineer Kinney. All right, so with this, we'll be going to our next presenter. That is Malam Ahmed Issa Shafe from the Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto. All right, so a brief introduction. Malam Ahmed Issa Shafe joined the services of Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto in 1989, where he rose through the ranks to become its first director of Information and Communication Technologies since 2001 to date. He served the university and the general community in various capacities, including the University ICT Management Committee, the University Strategic Planning, also the University Management Tenders Committee, as well as the University Procurement Planning Committee, the University Library Development Committee, and the University Open and Distance Learning Committee as well. He also served as the project manager in the World Bank Assisted Science and Technology Post-Basic, which is also known as the STEP B project at the university. He was also a member of the University Governing Council of Udus. At the state level, Malam Shafe chaired the Committee for the Development of ICT Blueprints in the states. He is also a member of the Sokoto State University Planning Committee, as well as the Sokoto State Implementation Committee. Also the Chairman Committee for the Establishment of Technology Institutes, and also a member of Committee on White Paper for Sokoto State University. The National Network NG planning.
Right. It would appear that Ola's network has frozen a bit here. But I think Malam Shafe,
Yeah.
I think he was coming to the end of the introduction to you. And I think you can proceed with your presentation. Ola, you kind of froze as you got to the end of the introduction to Malam Shafe. But
okay.
I think Malam, where if there are any gaps, you can continue to introduce yourself and go into your presentation, sir.
I think the introduction is well done. I think I just can proceed with the presentation. Well, good morning, everyone. The moderator has mentioned, my name is Ahmed Issa Chafi. I'm the Director ICT at the Osman Danfodio University, Sokoto, and I will be making a presentation on how we should be able to enhance our engagement with the national research and education networks. And let me start by sharing my presentation. I hope you can see the presentation. Can you see my slides?
Yes, sir. So you want to go into presentation mode, sir?
Yes, okay.
All right, that's fine, sir.
Yeah, good, okay. So as you can see, actually the presentation is on enhancing national research and education networks engagement on campus. And the presentation will be made 7 different sections because most of us here are coming from the institutions, and the concept of research and education networks could be new to some of us. I want to make the presentation as straightforward as possible and focusing on the campus or community, the educational community actually. And we'll be looking at why do institutions need Nigerian research and education networks. Then we'll look at the research and education network ecosystem. Then we'll look at identity federation concepts. Then we'll move on to EduGain as interfederation body. Then we'll go deeper into eduID, NG, which is the Nigerian ID of service. Then how do we even join eduID? And then what are some of the recommendations that I have on enhancing campus engagement in order to, enjoy or benefit from the REN services that we are talking about. Now, the first thing is, why even do we need national research and education networks? Well, the first thing that we look at is really how they support network connectivity among member institutions, because they are specialized networks that are focusing basically on education and research, and they have that kind of a capacity. They understand the institutional connectivity needs, and the kind of advices that are coming from them are really of high quality, because they are not just ordinary consultants. They are specific to the community. They can provide quality advice on policies, like how should our buildings be in terms of ICT connectivity? how do we now access the services? What about repositories? What about network policies? They can really be able to help us with that. They can also look at the issue of bandwidth, because when you are really accessing research and education network traffic, most institutions, in fact, all those institutions will not allow you to connect them using the commercial internet. There must be a research and education network that they use to share all those resources. So research and education networks can really help us look at how those things can be set up properly. And because the research, traffic is always based on trust. Institutions globally will allow you to connect because they trust you, and you have to earn that trust and the security. So that is also where the research and education networks will come in to advise our institutions how to make our network secured and the level of trust that is required for us to connect. And they can also help us look at advanced computing services such as Africa Connect 3, which is a network, advanced network that is being set up for the purposes of teaching, learning, and research among the African community. Another thing that research and education networks do, or why we need them, is because they will help us promote collaborations among member institutions. So here, you see, you need communities of practice to be put in place. And then there will be things like workshops that are there, and so on and so forth. So research and education networks can help us, improve our collaboration among ourselves and collaborations with other regional bodies and as well as global bodies for us to really be able to share resources with them. They can also help us strengthen access to services and contents. My own contents are mine, and they are as well yours once we are in this kind of arrangement. And what contents are we talking about? Things like repositories, subscribed resources, instructional resources, science laboratories. So because we are now sharing, we are together with a research and education network, will now be able to have access to all these other services that belongs to other institutions that are part of this arrangement. Some equipments are also too expensive. Some services like grid computing, huge research databases, some video conferencing services, and any management that you don't have in your own institution. But because of the capacity of the research and education networks, they help us establish access to all these resources that exist with other global players. Then we can now access them without having to deploy them in our institutions. And, we can now benefit from those kind of services. There's also this issue of technical support. Like I said earlier on, they are focused on the education community. So the kind of technical support that comes from them is higher quality than other consultants. For example, they can help us build capacities of our leadership, because in whatever we do, we need to have the leaders, the management of our institutions, the chief executives, and the rest of them. They need to understand what all these research and education networks are all about, so that they can now be able to support us. The researchers also need some training on how to use the ICT facilities to conduct their research and even collaborate with others. More importantly, also, as the technical people need to have technical skills, technical capacities to be able to manage the network, make sure it is accessible, available all the time to those who need them. Students also need, because they are the learners, in fact, they are the primary reason why we are in the institutions. They really need to learn how they can now make use of these facilities. So research and education networks can be able to help guide us on how these things can, capacities can be built in our institutions. Then looking at the ecosystem, the research and education network ecosystem, if you look at the diagram by the right, you now see at the bottom of that diagram, we have the campuses. Now, campuses are the main building blocks, campuses are the main building blocks of research and education networks, because that is where the actual researchers, learners are located. And that is the home of for services and contents that we are all talking about. We're all talking about sharing of contents, collaboration, and the rest of them. All these things are located in our campuses. Therefore, access to those campuses should be from anywhere on the campus. So at the bottom of the whole ecosystem of research and education networks are the campuses. Then these campuses now will aggregate their campuses, their network into a single network that will now be used to feed the National Research and Education Network, which is the second level. And there I give an example of a National Research and Education Network like the Eko-Konnect. But we should be making case for zonal clusters. By zonal clusters, we mean those institutions that are really in a zone, like say, Southwest zone, Northwest zone, Southeast zone, and the rest of them. If there are clusters in those kind of locations where the institutions there come together, really to be able to do a lot of things together because of the proximity they have, then it makes a lot of sense. For example, the Eko-Konnect and Eko-Lab considered to be a zonal network. We have the Sokren here in the Northwest. We have Eki-10. We have also net. In fact, there are many others that are already springing up. So these kind of clusters can now aggregate their network resources and services and feed the National Research and Education Network like the Eko-Konnect. So because it makes sense to collaborate that locally. The institutions that are closer together can now be able to leverage on bandwidth capacity. Look at work with the network operators and come up with a bandwidth that is cheaper for everybody. And then they can share local skills. They can try to create similar skills sets and be able to use them among themselves. And then they can develop, also train the trainer. So aggregate content and then feed the ren, which is like the Eko-Konnect. Now the ren also will now end up feeding the regional research and education network. Here in the West Africa, we have the WACREN, which is our regional network. So institutional networks connect to national research and education networks like ren or Eko-Konnect, and then these areas will in turn link to each other through regional research and education networks, RNs like WACREN, Ubuntu Alliance. So in fact, in Africa, we have also the Southeastern network like Ubuntu Net Alliance and similar networks like that. So these are now regional networks that are being fed by the National Research and Education Networks, and the National Research and Education Networks are being fed by the campuses. Now, the regional networks will eventually again link up to the global network research systems, like the giant and the Internet 2. The Internet 2 is for the United States of America, while the giant is for the European community. So with this kind of now connectivity, giant connects all so many regional networks all over the world, and each regional network connects to its national networks in that region, and each national network connects its educational institutions. So as you progress up and up, more resources are now being available to you without having to pay additional cost. So you have access to global facilities, global research resources without having to pay much. And this is what the beauty and the strength of the research and education network is. You have a huge ecosystem. You sit in your own office, in the comfort of your office, and access research materials globally without having to pay more money. And this actually leads to the concept of identity federation. How do you now access all these services that are available globally? You use the concept of what we call the identity federation. And what is an identity federation? It's a collection of institutions and research organizations that agree to interoperate under a certain set of rules. So if you have institutions that come together and they agree to interoperate, meaning to share, to connect, to share resources together based on certain rules, then you are talking about an identity federation. And these rules consist of legal frameworks, policies, profiles, standards, security, and trust. Security and trust are very, very essential for this kind of connectivity to happen, for you to have access to services within the federation. And with this kind of arrangement, you only need a single login credentials. And Ken has already talked about this single sign-on where you have Eduroam. So with this single credential, you can have access to global resources, but trust is the key. So single sign-on, which is like Eduroam, is also what is required. So the services are now there for you. The collaborations can be done with Identity Federation. And the concept really looks at three fundamental activities or users, if you wish to call them. First, there are the users, who are the building blocks of all identity federations, because everything we're talking about is about our researchers, our students, our lecturers, and so on and so forth. So they form the main building block. Then you have the identity providers. And what are these identity providers? Is those institutions that have users. So they provide information about their users. So they provide identities of their users within the network. I trust you and you trust me. We trust each other. So based on that, your users whom you provide can now have access to my resources because I trust you to provide and to secure your network so that your users can now have access to my resources. No commercial internet, not through the commercial internet. Of course, you can have commercial internet, but exchange of these traffics does not happen on commercial internet. It happens on research and education network. So then after the entity provider, you have the service provider. Who is the service provider? Somebody who provides the services. If your university has a repository or your institution has a repository and it makes that repository available, then it becomes a service provider. So your institution can be an identity provider. You provide identities of your users, and you provide a repository service, then you become also a service provider through whom other institutions can now have access to those repositories that you have provided. So basically, in a simple term, this is what Identity Federation is really trying to address. Now, we move to EduGain. It's a specific, interfederation of service. I mean, it's in IDFs. So EduGain try to connect identity federations from nations, and it creates a single interfederation identity service provision, and is generally managed by the European ren, which is Giant. Giant is the one that is managing the interfederation called EduGain. And this interfederation comprises over 70 participating federations, connecting more than 8,000 identity and service providers across the globe. So it interconnects regional research and education networks and national research and education networks. This way, it allows you to scalably support access to services globally because it has that global connection. You are local here, you now reach out any part of the world through your national research and education networks, through your regional research and education network to the global research and education network and access those services. And one of such identity federations we are talking about is the eduID.ng, which is a Nigerian identity federation service, which is managed by Eko-Konnect in Nigeria. If you look at this table, this is showing over 70 identity federations globally, and you can see Nigeria there with eduID.ng. It's one of those identity federations that are connected to the global EduGain. And it's a pride to say that in the West and Central Africa, Nigeria is the first identity federation service that is part of the EduGain. So about eduID, what is eduID? Is the Identity and Access Federation for the Nigerian Research and Education Community. So participating institutions can utilize federated access among each other in a cloud-based trusted access management. You can see this issue of trust keeps coming up because without trust, if other institutions don't trust your own institution, then there is no way they can allow you to have access to their resources. And what are those services we are talking about? Well, access, research-based versus commercial internet. repositories and other digital library resources, open educational resources, learning management systems, video conferencing, domain name services, network operations and management, and network security are among the services. High-speed networks and computing power, grids computing, science gateways, large-scale databases, labs and scientific equipment for cutting-edge research in medicine, engineering, sciences, economics, relevant to social and economic development of any country. So through eduID, you can have access to this vast amount of knowledge and information and research outputs that resides globally. You can now have access to that through the eduID, which will also access it through the eduGain, and then get to the global community. So how do you now join eduID? Because that is the whole focus of what we are trying to do. It is already there in place. So the membership is open to the institutions, and membership is free for now. So it's free for you to join. So all you need to do is you know how to join and you join it. So you can join as an IDP or an SP or even both. So even organizations external to the Nigerian research and education community can apply to participate in the federation as affiliated members or service providers. All you need to do is to fill the forms to apply. And then you agree to policies and set of rules. So I will be able to access resources federated through eduID.ng, which is governed by Nigerian Federation policy. Metadata registration is governed by eduID.ng. And to the right, you will now see the links as I provided them here. For participating and other relevant information is obtainable at www.eduid.ng. And then the list of existing IDPs in the eduid.ng, there are about 7 existing eduid IDPs, which you can now access at the link that has been provided below. So what are the benefits? Well, you automatically, well, at the time you join eduid, you automatically become a member of the eduGain, because eduid is already a member of eduGain. So when you join eduid, it's like you join eduGain. And when you do that, you can use a single sign-on to have seamless and secure access to services in and outside Nigeria, in fact, globally. And then there will be provision of more services for your users. The more you now join, the more services are available. In fact, if you look at this even from our own perspective here in Nigeria, you have an institution sitting next to you and you are part of the eduGain. It means the resources of that institution, even if you look at repositories alone, all what they have, the contents of their repositories are now accessible to your researchers, your teachers, your students, So imagine now you add in other institutions within the country, you add in other institutions within the West Africa region, you add in other institutions within Africa, and then you now grow global. And you have all these things being accessible to you, using just digital identity for all these services, a single sign-on. So you access more without extra efforts. This way you grow your audience and increase visibility of your institution. So I move into how now do we enhance this? Yes, these services, the Nigerian Research and Education Networks are there. The regional research and education networks are there. The global network are there. And we are here as campuses and we want to really join. But, so as we are now, we are facing a lot of challenges. And for we to really be able to enjoy these services, we really need to enhance, our campuses. And one of the things I'm looking at is we have to have ICT policies. And these ICT policies should be looking at our infrastructure. How are we connected? What ICT compliance policies do we have, like ICT compliance buildings? We should be able to say that every building that is springing up in our institutions should be 100% ICT compliant, so that our researchers can now sit in the comfort of their offices and access our resources as well as other global resources. We also have to have policies that will ensure we are well protected if we really want to access resources from other rents. So we try also to align our policies with our strategic plans, long-term strategic plan. and we establish institution-wide ICT community to drive the process. This is a recommendation for all of us. If you really want to do this, ICT committees are very important because they will cut across the whole campuses and then they will help us drive this process. We have somebody who is responsible for driving it. Two, we need to strengthen the campus infrastructure. The fiber backbone, we should be looking at fiber at our backbone, not wireless. Wireless has limitations and it is very difficult to manage. But by the time you now deploy fiber in your campus, you can forget about it. The next 25 years also, you have no problem with it. So ICT compliant buildings has come up. We should be able to also encourage the provision of hotspots for our users because we don't have enough computers to go around for all our students. But by the time you have hotspots with our mobile phones, now students can sit anywhere, even in their dormitories, and access resources seamlessly. And then we should be looking at how do we get more bandwidth, because bandwidth is the key. Without bandwidth, you will not be able to do most of what we are saying. And the good thing about research and education networks, they can help you now get more and cheaper bandwidth.
Hello,
Network availability.
Sorry, sir, to interrupt you, but you have 5 minutes more, sir.
5 minutes, I think I will be able to finish within that 5 minutes. So strengthen campus networks, as you can see, are talking about power, protect users' resources. We're talking about establishing campus-wide community to drive the process. Funding, the greatest challenge that we are facing. You see, the research outputs we have in our institutions cannot be able to use them if we don't have good access in our campuses. So the focus should really be on how do we now ensure this access. So we are recommending that TechFund should look at how they increase their ICT support funding towards making sure that all the output, research outputs we have can now be seen across the world. Then we should be able to also build capacity. Policy makers need awareness, researchers, lecturers, technical skills, students, all need skills, clusters to build local capacities. So TechFund, NIDA, and other funding agencies should focus deeply on providing technical skills beyond productivity tools. We appreciate what Adapti is doing in our campuses with capacity, but they focus mostly on productivity tools. We need them to go deeper. TechFund's e-readiness survey is very commendable because a lot will come out of what exists in our institutions for us to be able to have meaningful development plans. Then build contents. Content is key. Below your trumpet, what do you have and what are you doing? Think about more contents, repositories, OER, teaching learning resources, and the rest of them. So joining eduID.ng makes a lot of sense because we'll now be able to have all these things at a much, much lower cost. So finally, I said collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Collaborate between your zones, nationally, regionally, and globally. Use collaboration tools to talk to each other. Use WhatsApp, use emails, use virtual meet, use whatever is available, but talk and talk so that you can now understand each other and share resources, share experiences, build communities of practice across your campuses. I wish to thank you all for your time and attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Shafi. Very, very interesting presentation. Okay, please remember, any comments, questions, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A for your questions. Okay. Mr. Wen,
no, just wanted to say, Malam Shafi, another wonderful presentation. And I think what is happening here is that, you know, the community is starting to grow because we're having more advocates spread the message. And like you said, the key thing is for collaboration, but to hear yourself and Ekene now echoing the things that maybe Eko-Konnect has been having to do single-handedly for such a long time is so heartwarming. And there are so many opportunities that we're missing out on because of the fact that we don't collaborate as communicate with ourselves and come together as human networks, technical networks, and infrastructure networks. So of course we need to have our campus networks and the NREN network developed because that brings great opportunity. But even even in regional clusters, like you said, Shafe, neighboring institutions can share resources, start talking to one another, and there are frameworks available now by which maybe Usman Danfodio has information it wants to share with its neighboring institutions in the northwest of the region. Maybe Nnamdi Azikiwe has some information in his own institutional repositories that they want to share, maybe only within their own region, maybe because of language and cultural reasons. The whole idea is to collaborate. And again, you can create, even within the Nigerian Identity Federation, you can have domains of trust where you can even say, all right, within the Nigerian Identity Federation, for this reason, I want to have just this IDP, and this IDP access my content because I want to share this particularly with maybe agricultural universities. So I have a repository and I want other universities of agriculture only to access this information because I trust them and I know they utilize that data properly. So in being local, we get global. So thank you again, Shafe, for a really, really wonderful presentation. Somebody was asking about the presentations. They will be made available by, if not by Friday, by early next week. They'll be made available, and we're streaming all of this on YouTube as well. So we'll send links to the YouTube video so you can watch these presentations again at your leisure. So back to you, Ola.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. All right, so with that said, we'll be going into the next presenter. So that will be Dr. Ladi Ajayalemi. He's a lecturer from the University of Lagos. So Dr. Ladi, are you here with us?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so just a brief introduction. Dr. Ladi is a lecturer with the University of Lagos Distance Learning Institute. He earned his PhD with a specialty in marketing from the University of Lagos, Nigeria, where he was also awarded a scholarship for the best doctoral students in the university. His research interests are in consumer behavior, branding, and strategic marketing. He is married and blessed with 2 children. So for today, Dr. Ladi will be talking to us on e-learning and publishing with regards to the Distance Learning Institute of University of Lagos. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ladi.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Before you start, Dr. Ladi, there's a lot of background noise from where you are.
Oh, wow. I'm actually at the office and, it's difficult to control the noise. I'll try my best to speak out. Give me a minute. Just try and talk to me. Just give me a minute. I don't know if you're hearing that.
All right, so while we wait for Dr. Ladi, so remember, you can use the chats and the Q&A. Also, the presenters from all our sessions from Tuesday, all will be made available to everyone as well, okay?
Hello, I hope that is better.
Okay, that's better, but your video is a bit shaky, so well, maybe you can start the presentation.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to start by sharing my good morning, everybody. I'd like to apologize for the noise in the background. I'm actually at the office and there's no way to control these things. So my presentation is very, very good. Unfortunately, it will not be as technical as the one that engineer and Alaji Chafi has given, because I'm just here to present the experience just here to present the various collaborations we've had with Eko-Konnect. So my presentation will be quite brief. I'll be sharing my screen now so that you can start. So what we would be looking at, I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes. All right. So what we'll be looking at now is nexus of collaborations between. But before we do that, we mentioned some and ODL as we go ahead. And many people tend to and not actually mistake. So I want to take some time out to is when we provide training or any kind of instruction to anybody, so it could be students, it could be employees, using electronic media. So electronic media could take the form of the internet. It could be audio, visual recordings. It could be devices and physical devices. Anything that's been you are carrying out e-learning. So ODL, on the other hand, is a type of education through different information and communication technologies. So basically, we are looking at a way of passing along where the learner is not necessarily in the same location as so it gives.
Dr. Ladi, we are having a problem hearing you clearly. So I'm guessing that could be your network. Is that possible you can adjust your network?
Oh, you can't hear me?
Yes, you are breaking quite a lot.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry about that. It must be network. And it's been clear on my end for a bit. Is it better now? I've tried to move my modem. I've tried to move my modem. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, ODL is designed more towards distinguishing differences between the two. So the first one is that e-learning does not primarily concern itself with physical distance between the instructor and the student. So basically, the instructor and the student could be in the same classroom and probably be on different devices and charging devices to train. For e-learning, as long as it's e-learning only takes place where you have any electronic media involved. So they could be in the same design for when the learner and the facilitator or the teacher are not in the same room. So there is supposed to be some the instructor and the learner when they are practicing ODL. So as we can see from the definitions or from the differences, e-learning we sometimes, for instance, in DLI, we print physical copies of the course materials and we send to the students. So they are getting the course materials in a printed format and they are learning. So that's the difference between ODL and e-learning as well. Now, in DLI,
Hello, Dr. Ladi.
We have a blended mode. The blended mode is a situation where, I don't know if you can still hear me.
Well, we lost you for some seconds, but you're back.
Really? Okay. I'm sorry, it's a matter of network, and I tried to beat it by, but I don't know. My apologies. All right. So as I was saying, in UniLagro, we have our characteristics is students come. So we have a mix of using and not compulsory, but we have. Hello.
I think we might have to suspend his presentation, Ola, because it's too poor, the connection. Maybe if we let's see if we can move to the next speaker and see if we can try and sort out his connections.
All right, I'm sorry about that. Let me try and see if I can connect you with another.
Okay, in the meantime, we'll proceed. I think we should proceed to the next person, and then Laddie will try and come back to you if your connection is stronger. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, there. Sorry about that for the presentation. All right. So we'll be going to the next speaker. That will be Dr. Ibrahim Abdullahi. Dr. Ibrahim, you're with us. Can you hear me, please? Dr. Ibrahim?
Yes, thank you so much, Ola. I can hear you.
All right, so a bit of introduction. Dr. Ibrahim Abdullahi is the Director, ICT and Head of Department, Computer Science, Ibrahim Badamasi, Babangida University, Lapai. So Dr. Ibrahim holds a PhD in Computer Science with keen interest in future Ethernet, OS algorithm, and artificial intelligence, and also information-centric networking. He also doubles as the university coordinator of the computer-based test and examination. Dr. Ibrahim was the chair at the TPC at an international conference on network application and protocols, NetApps 2015, hosted in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Dr. Ibrahim is an alumnus of Osman Danfodio University, Sokoto, Ahmadu Bello University, ABU Zaria, and University Utara, Malaysia, where he obtained his BSc, MSc, and PhD, respectively. Dr. Ibrahim is an ICT expert, editor, and LMS content writer. He is also a facilitator at the Africa Center of Excellence on Technology Enhanced Learning, ESTEL. He is currently serving on the board of advisor in Computer Professional Registration Council of Nigeria, which is the CPN, and also the Nigeria Computer Society, NCS, among the academia and industry group. Dr. Ibrahim is a co-lead at the Virtual Laboratory for Science and Technology project funded by the Royal Academy of Engineering of the UK, a coordinator at IBBUL for A14C, and co-coordinator at the CLI for SEM grants funded by the Canadian RDRC. All right, so Dr. Ibrahim, his topic today will be planning for Eduroam deployments with respect to their experience at the Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida University, Lapai. So Dr. Ibrahim, you want to get started, sir?
Oh, thank you so much, Ola, Lawal, and good morning to everyone here. It is actually a great pleasure to be here again and to meet my great friend.
Do you want to start your video, sir? Okay, your presentation.
All right. So let me pick the slide. It is a great pleasure and humble honor to be here. So I'll be speaking to us on the experience and the plans that we have for the Eduroam deployment at Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida University, Lapai. And let me just try to pick the slide also to make it easy for us to see. So while the slide is loading, I really want to commend the effort of Engineer Ekene and my big boss, Director ICT Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto Malam Chafe, for setting the ball rolling on what we stand to benefit as regards to Eduroam and other. I bet you can see my slide from here now.
Okay, it's loading. Okay, yes, your slide is up, sir.
Yeah, just as you have introduced earlier, my name is Ibrahim Abdullahi. I'm an errand boy of the university. I call myself like that. Moving around from one assignment to the other. So I'm the head of ICT and also doubling as the head of department and the coordinator for e-exams. So on the planning for Eduroam deployment, the first focus is connectivity, access, collaboration, NG ren, identity provider, and partnership. And just as you mentioned earlier, I was also opportune to be part of the people that benefited from the MyRen. And when we say MyRen, it is just like what we have for Nigeria, but that's for Malaysia. So I now see why, and the reason why Malaysia is having a lot of visibility and the ranking of their universities. And I commend Eko-Konnect for also bringing us into the urban enjoyment of collaboration and also a great ecosystem as it relates to connectivity. So we will look at the background, the institution, and Eko-Konnect, the architecture model, and what we have been doing about the Eduroam. Just as a brief introduction, maybe for some of us that don't know Ibrahim Badmassi University, it's a state-owned university, just as we have the Lagos State University and other state universities, situated at the central center of Lapai local government, and with an approximate users of the cyberspace of about 30,000. So we can say it's a growing institution, or it's still in growth. But hopefully, as we move ahead and with the coming and deployment of the Eduroam, I bet our coverage and also the users will increase. So Ivy University operates on 2 campuses, the main campus and the Kobo campus, which they are 3 kilometers apart approximately. And this is just a pictorial representation of what our campus looks like. So this is a snap image of the main campus. And with this great coverage and the landscape, we are hopeful that once we come onto the Eduroam, we are definitely going to be among the main people that will not abuse the privilege, and we will actually use it to the fullest. So this is also an image of what the structure looks like. And you will agree with me that this is just a campus as the main campus. I didn't put the image of the Kobo campus, but it will definitely promise more users if we go into the Kobo campus, because it's situated right in the city center of the town. So in a very rough estimate, this is what the structure looks like at the moment. And I'm sharing this just to give a small background to what many of us have as we deploy in our institutions. So this is also a guide to just show what we have. Moving ahead structurally, this is what the topology looks like. So it will be quite interesting for all of us to see how we try to just make everything in one box. But this is, as it were, at the beginning of our deployment. So our university has grown past all of the structure, but just for the purpose of the presentation. So what do we stand to do, and what are the services available before we get fully into the Eduroam community and also the NGRN and so many things? Proper unified communication systems that include the video conferences and other things, which most institutions of Nigeria should also have as a service. So setting out, and this is the time where we need to set out. Eduroam, as we have seen, provides simple, easy, secure connectivity all around. So many countries are doing this. And just as Mr. Owen had mentioned, yeah, in many countries when we visit, you find easy connectivity, and Eko-Konnect, I have to give it to you. And you're doing a great lot of things to see that we are also visible. Since about 10,000 Eduroam hotspots are available in the universities and research areas. Let me just share a little from the Malaysian experience. Just before we started today, I checked around their universities that are always top ranking when the ranking positions are advised or when they are released. And it is actually the main focus of the output of research coming out of Asia, particularly Southeast Asia, because of the investments. When I looked around their community, I saw even the Federal Ministry of Higher Education fully connected. So this is the same point that my big uncle Chafe is talking about. If we have the ministries and the relevant stakeholders all engaged in this, then we will definitely have the respect and the visibility that we so deserve. Because we have for long been working for other countries and other research organizations. Just as you looked at and as you read through my bio, you find Royal Academy of Engineering supporting a lot of researchers. So if we have these kind of outreach, then definitely we will also be doing a lot of things. And I bet you economically it will be a great thing for the country and also for the whole African sub-region. So greatly, it is a global agreement that Eduroam Wi-Fi roaming services is free of charge. So just as Jaffe has said, we have a lot of friends, and we have a group where almost all the directors of ICT come and talk together. And we have other collaborations that have almost similar objective to see that the country is placed on the better pedestal. So for IB University, Eduroam, the benefits will be immense for both individuals, institutions, particularly our research and educational networks. And for us also, the traffic control will be well managed, and most scintillation or the congestions will definitely be fully tolerable, as we have so many gadgets to be able to access. One of the benefits and the first output or the first outreach that Eduroam is trying to give us an Eko-Konnect, promising us over 90 plus access points. So for research and education networks, Eduroam offers a unique value added service to the institutions and users and wider community. So as I have said, renng can offer a high visibility, and definitely the impact and also the ranking of the engineering education sector will be better. So on the technology, just as been described on the website, we're going to set up the radio server to connect to our own institutional identity server. And this will now get into the federated radio server. And concretizing on this, then the collaboration between Eko-Konnect and IB University will benefit all of the country. When I say all of the country, because any output coming out of the institutions will be shared. And definitely the institutional collaboration with sister institutions, particularly within regions and even outside the geographical or the political, six geopolitical regions, will be more and more expandable when we come together as an ecosystem. So the benefits also, it will benefit us so much as our network admin staff will undergo a lot of training, just as we've been promised by Eko-Konnect, and I know definitely Mr. Owen and his team are not going to rest on their horses to make sure that this is done. And we will also have the capacity building, just as Professor Musa Ibiodun mentioned yesterday. For IB University, just in the leaf of the academipreneurship, where we do the academic industrial collaboration, in IB University, it is also part of our strategic plan to see that we now have so many technopreneurs and coming with this kind of things, mixing the educational outputs and searches with the technical know-hows of the engineers, then definitely technopreneurs will also help, and the economical value of the university, the country, and also the Africa will be boosted. So a positive progressive counts to IBB University as we are already in the motion to get everything connected to AdoID. Will benefit with our expansion in terms of the wireless network accessibility and connectivity. And we also have new identity provider, the IDP, and it implies that Eduroam Wi-Fi roaming will be implemented. So resultantly, Eko-Konnect, which is the Nigerian ID Federation operator, shall cap the collaboration for us in full. Also adding to the positive progressive points that we will benefit as an institution, and I know not just IB University, any university that is being penciled or also listed among the next partner group will have a credit point of Eduroam managed IDP outsourcing technical setups, and also a web-based user management interface will be given to us, and the technical team will continue with us, and definitely we form the mutual relationship of progressive partners as we move ahead. So Eko-Konnect Eduroam for IB University, even at this moment, and I must share, our network unit of the DICT is already benefiting immensely from the discussions we have had, and also the lot of meetings and the technical map that we're coming up. So we're setting our target for wider connectivity, reachability, and also visibility. And after that, we're going to connect with purpose and government willingness and support, particularly from the management and administrations of the university. And moving ahead, we will set out. And just as Mr. Chafi said, collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. For IB University, we belong to a very, very big network. And with our leave and wearing the clothes of Eko-Konnect now, you know, our collaboration and career growth, visibility and income and finances will be immeasurable in terms of the educational reach and research educational network benefits, and also wider reach to most resources, particularly as it relates to publications and other wider benefits of making life seamless and also easy to manage on the cyberspace. So in a nutshell, we in IB University, with the help of Eko-Konnect and other relevant stakeholders, are looking at it uniquely, setting our destination to see that we move progresses with the solutions as we plan, to get the fundamental rights to communicate and also have a paradigm shift with motivation, undisrupted, to look at the business areas, technological innovations, pervasive, and also to see everything almost drastic, to see that the narratives are changed. And I bet, and I'm hopeful that even the ranking done by NUC after our full implementation with Eko-Konnect and Eduroam, I know that the placement of Ibrahim at the Master of University will also be looking at the strategic plan and the dream of our sister institution that want to be among the 200 best universities in the world. I am talking to Engineer Kenneth. So that is what we are capping it out with, to say we are going for a paradigm shift, and we will do the in-house collaboration as against always running around to see how we find international. But since the Eduroam is a global collaboration ecosystem, then it will be fast, enjoyable for us to go into the paradigm shift. So conclusively, I really want to appreciate all of the members of this community, and I leave you with this slide that is showing that the best way for us is to communicate using the first icon there. Then we listen and discuss, we collaborate, then at the end, success is going to be ours. Thank you so much, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, sir, for the presentation. So please remember, everyone, if you have questions or comments on the presentation, please feel free to use the chat window. Okay. All right. So Stowen,
yeah. Just to say thank you, Dr. Ibrahim Abdullahi, for that presentation. And of course, at Eko-Konnect, we're very excited about the developments and the collaboration. And well, hopefully at next year's conference, we'll be able to talk about the full deployment and actual benefits that this project is undertaking. I think maybe just a quick mention also to DataSphere Solutions, who are basically doing all of the project management on this endeavor at IBBUL. And like I said, hopefully in the coming months or at some other opportunity, we'll be able to talk more about the successful implementation of this. We don't have too much time left, and unfortunately, Dr. Ladi from University of Lagos had some connectivity problems, but he did share his presentation with me. So what I'm going to try to do is run through his slides in about 5 minutes. So we have a little bit of time to take some questions and answers before we actually close the session and actually close the conference. So if you just give me a few minutes, I will try to go through Dr. Ladia JLME's presentation. I think he had already started talking about e-learning and open distance learning and the differences between e-learning and ODL. I'm not an expert in the pedagogy of all of this, but I think it was at this point in his slide that he was having some challenges. But then I think he wanted to sort of talk about the Distance Learning Institute experience that is having in the University of Lagos. So functional obsolescence of correspondence education was an issue. The culture of switching, to online learning management systems was something that they were addressing. Then the change in the demography of applicants. So I'm not sure what that was, whether they were becoming older. So because you have older students that typically do DLI, then their orientations and their practices with using online is a bit more challenging. Then, of course, as we've already experienced in this session, there's always the need for internet bandwidth. There can never be too much internet bandwidth. It's if as more internet is available, the more we consume. So we need that. And of course, many of the facilitators of e-learning and open distance learning are typically traditional lecturers who are learning the teaching skills on the job. And so there are a lot of shortfalls in terms of how online delivery is being provided by the teachers, because they themselves need capacity development. So in terms of things like pedagogical understanding of e-learning, instructional design in terms of design and rollout of online courses, and then of course the ability of learning management systems to interconnect and interact with external resources like open education resources and other resources to enrich the e-learning experience. And of course, increasing the need for digital platforms for student interactions. So these tend to be some of the challenges that distance learning institutes, I guess, across most of our universities that run DLI are experiencing. And increasingly, this is going to be a challenge in the mainstream campuses as well, as because of what happened with COVID, there is a need for more online teaching to take place even in the mainstream university. So the challenges that DLI are looking to surmount are going to be challenges that mainstream university will need to address also. So in UNILAG's case, they've been running the Distance Learning Institute for a number of years, and they still felt that they needed to build capacity among their staff. So they did reach out to us, and we are collaborating with them, and we actually did staff training for for their e-learning instructors. Unilag uses Moodle as their e-learning platform. And so we trained about 31 of their facilitators. In fact, our moderator led that training, and really to address issues of course creation, course administration, and then creating assessments and deployments. So that was the focus of the training, and then how to leverage Zoom integration with Moodle. So these were some of the areas that were covered during the training. The pictures on the left-hand side, the director of the Distance Learning Institute, Professor Uchenna Odiani, was sort of giving an opening address to the participants, and beside her was the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos. And the picture below just depicts some of the training that was started with our training facilitators. So, but beyond the e-learnings collaborations as well, the Distance Learning Institute are interested in journal publishing. They have a number of journals that they want to publish, and they're looking for cost-effective ways of being able to publish journals, just because journal publishing typically tends to be quite expensive, and there's the peer review process that goes back and forth, and then actually putting these journals on international platforms are quite expensive. But the Unilag DLI got to hear about the fact that Eko-Konnect is piloting an open source based publishing platform called Kotahi, and they basically are working with us to pilot Kotahi for their publishing, for their publications. So we're working with Unilag, and I think one or two, the APWAD and another university, to pilot this Kotahi publishing platform. And hopefully during the course of this year, we're going to be able to roll out this publishing platform as a means for researchers and librarians and content producers and editors to be able to produce and publish their journals and other kinds of publications like preprints and micro-publishing.
Hello, Mr. Owen. Okay, we seem to have lost Mr. Owen. Can you hear me right?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you. We can hear you, Ola.
Just waiting for Mr. Owen to come back. We seem to have lost him.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we are
yeah, he's back.
He's back now. Okay.
Particularly in the e-learning, area.
Lost you so a few minutes ago.
Oh, you lost me? Where did you lose me?
You were talking about piloting.
Okay. My apologies. I didn't realize my connection had gone. But can you hear me clearly now?
Yeah, it's very clear, sir.
Okay. So what I was saying, beyond the e-learning collaborations we have with Unilag DLI, DLI themselves have a number of journals that they want to publish, and because of the typical costs that are attendant with publishing journals, they became aware of this platform that Eko-Konnect is piloting called Kotahi, which is an open source publishing platform. We're deploying and developing that in our community cloud platform, the ren.ng. And so they took interest in being one of the pilot institutions that can publish journals to this platform. So we're working with UNILAG to have them pilot this publishing platform for their journal publication, along with 2 other institutions. And also the University of Lagos and DLI are one of the 4 pilot institutions in a project named the Digital University Africa. And basically, this is a project being funded primarily by the British Council to aid with digital transformation of universities in Africa in light of the impact of the COVID-19 in terms of all institutions having to really have a online strategy and being able to build up the skill sets and capabilities to adopt use of online infrastructure. So this project involved pilot institutions, including University of Lagos, and some workshops. And the Distance Learning Institute is heavily involved in that project. And the findings of the research that were undertaken are going to be discussed at the EU-AU Summit in Brussels in February. And hopefully we're expecting that some funding will emanate from this process. And UNILAG and 3 other beneficiary pilot institutions will benefit from this activity. And again, this slide sort of just embellishes a bit more of what I was to this project. So I think that was really the end of his presentation. I hope I did it justice. So on behalf of Dr. J. Alemi, thank you, everyone. Back to you, back to you, Ola.
Okay, thank you very much for that, sir. All right, so that's all our presenters for today. So all our presenters are still in this webinar, so they are just waiting for your questions. So this is going to be more of like a question and answer type of thing. If you have a direct question to any of the participants, you can have that in the chat or the Q&A. And if you'd also like to speak, you can use the raise hand icon in your Zoom. You'll see that at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can use that to raise your hand, and then we'll give you the permission to speak and ask any of the presenters question. And even if it's for us here at Eko-Konnect that you have a question that you like to pose to us, so please kindly do that as well for this next few minutes before we round up. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Our questions have been answered in the Q&A. Okay. Okay, that's more tailored to. All right, so any questions, please?
Okay, apparently there are no questions. If there are no questions.
Mr. Owen, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, I will be asking this question on behalf of so many institutions because I know we in the classroom, the questions never end, just as we ask students, and we've definitely asked Eko-Konnect so much. In terms of research funding, aside the infrastructural support and the ecosystem provided by Eko-Konnect and the ren and ng, what other benefits of, let's say, research funding can an institution apply through Eko-Konnect to benefit?
I will refer you to the session that we had, session 3, yesterday morning on research funding, where we deliberated on this for a whole session. And it's something that is a continuous in all our conferences that we've had. And we run our annual conference every year in January. Funding is always a recurring issue to look at because there's such a dearth of funding. We can never have too much funding. So so many different activities, so many different initiatives are being looked at to improve funding. But I think in the session that we had on yesterday morning, I think the emphasis was also for institutions to also be very introspective about creating the capacity, skills, and environment within the campus that is very research focused. You can't really sit back in your campus and just expect, the funding to fall into your laps. You need to be very proactive to get funding, and a lot of the infrastructure that we talk about that you are implementing in your campus, and a lot of what Madam Shafe talked about, infrastructure, creating networks, creating the infrastructure will give the visibility to your campuses so that funders come looking for you as well. So much is said, and there's almost, the obsession with the webometric rankings. Very important to give visibility to universities through the web, but there are actually even equally as effective, and in my view, even more powerful ways of increasing visibility in order to attract research collaboration and research funding. And that is by strengthening your institutional repositories, strengthening national repositories. So if, for example, you have an institutional repository in IBBUL, and you have a particular strength in a particular subject matter or discipline, and your information, your articles, your publications and artifacts are going into your institutional repository, that institutional repository has to be able to adhere to protocols and standards, and so that IR can be visible, it can be accessed, it can be, the research can be extended, and there are lots of protocols. The librarians and researchers will be familiar with things like FAIR principles for their repositories: findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable data and metadata. What that does is it creates that visibility within the whole research ecosystem, so that other researchers from across the globe will look at a particular research that is being done in your institution and say that they want to collaborate. And in collaborating, maybe they bring in funding. And that is why these ecosystems that Shafet spoke so well about, and the eduID and the campus networks, the NRENs, the institutional repositories, Eduroam, academic identity through eduID, brings that, puts you into that global ecosystem to provide visibility for funding opportunities. One of the things we've been talking very much about in this conference, and also talking to national stakeholders like TED Fund, and TED Fund are saying they want to build national repositories. They want to make sure that those repositories are built in such a way that they adhere to global standards, so other funders as well might want to collaborate with TED Fund in certain areas. So it is all of that infrastructure, and also the mindset of our researchers and lecturers does need to change. We are strong advocates of open science and open research. So I think the mentality of researchers does need to change. They need to get more in tune with open research, because that will give more visibility and more impact, and not be so mindful, first of all, of the money, because money will come if the visibility comes. And so I think Professor Biodun from FUTMINA did a great presentation on dealing with a lot of the cultural issues that maybe need to change within our research community as well. So I may not have really answered your question, Dr. Abdullahi, but I'd refer you to the other sessions as well. And it's an ongoing conversation. Obviously, Eko-Konnect, we're connected to different local and international organizations, and we're always looking for opportunities on behalf of our REN community. But I think, as we've said, it's a collaborative effort that we all need to engage in. Thank you. Yeah, well, I don't know if I answered it well enough, but thank you for your comments. And I think it's 5 minutes past 12, and I think at this point we do need to let everyone go. So I'd like to thank all our speakers today: Dr. Abdullahi Ibrahim, Mr. Ekene Eziasa, Malam Ahmed Issa Shafe, and Dr. Ladi J. Alemi for their presentations. And I'd like to thank all of you that attended this session. I really hope it was of use to you and impactful, and you can take some ideas from the discussions back into your different institutions and communities. Like we said, we're going to reach out to everybody with information about links to the presentations and the YouTube and all the other sessions that took place during this conference will be made available to everyone in the next couple of days. So I think on behalf of all of us, I wish to thank you for attending this session and in fact all of the sessions during our 2022 conference. And I do look forward to next year's conference being a hybrid conference where it will both be physical and online as well. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a great afternoon.